Well, greetings, friends and fellow travelers, and welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod. I am your Life Mastery coach and also the author of this brand new book that I've been telling people about for this past week. It's called A Life to Die For, Master 10 Key Skills to Transform Your Life into a priceless treasure. I haven't even memorized the title of my book yet. How bad is that? But anyway, it's available now on Amazon. I hope you'll go check it out and pick up a copy. Anyway, today we're talking about authenticity. It's all the rage, isn't it? Everybody talks about authenticity, but what does it really mean? And especially given that our topic today is called Authentically Real. Now that kind of is a bit confusing, wouldn't you say? Because the word authentic and the word real in some contexts are actually synonyms. So what do we mean by authentically real? Well, we're going to answer some of those questions for sure. And my guest today is an international certified coach, a blogger with the Wellness Universe, and a talk show host on News for the Soul Radio, where she shares her passion and tips for cultivating authentic self-care. She's also an accomplished speaker, educating groups and organizations about personal development and healthy well-being. Her calling is to connect and empower busy women to find and own their authentic identity so that they can be change makers and positively impact others. So please welcome the lovely Nancy Stevens to today's program. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nancy. It's been a while since we saw each other at Soul Treat back in April, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. I really enjoy your work, and the more love we can spread in the world, the better. So thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
Oh, you're most welcome. And like I said, I'm really glad that you're here. So what do we say, this word authentically real? First of all, well, maybe I'll just backtrack just a wee bit. And I'm going to ask you a more personal question.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that happened in your life that led you to this path of personal growth and authenticity in the first place? You want to share a little bit about that?
I can do that. Yeah, I had I guess I call a normal, supposed average life. But what I didn't realize as I was being raised and becoming an adult was I lived at the surface, so to speak. I went with the status quo. I wanted to please people, fit in, belong. And what I didn't realize, of course, was that when I was wanting to fit in, belong, and please, that I was living according to what I thought I needed to be for the world, for other people, that I didn't know really who I was at my core. And what I didn't know until inklings began to come in that as I became married, my husband and I began to have our first children, then things began to start to stir in me that something was that off balance, not quite right. Like I was maybe becoming more angry, frustrated, just feeling like, who am I supposed to be and do with all of that? And that's kind of when I really began to realize that there was something missing or more out there, probably when in my late 30s, when I guess the dust had settled from early adulthood to marriage to becoming a parent. So that's when my journey of becoming aware, not really knowing what it was, began for me, for sure.
First of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that. I know that sometimes sharing personal stuff like that can be a little bit vulnerable, and so I really appreciate that you're willing to do that. But I wanted to also say it blows my mind how similar your story is to my own. I mean,
Wow.
in my case, the anger kind of developed into a pretty strong anger and resentment about the whole world. I didn't really understand what was going on, but I did exactly the same thing you were doing. I was trying to please everybody else. I was trying to live up to what I thought their expectations were of me and how I was supposed to show up. And in the process, now maybe you can relate to this, in the process, I basically disowned the truth of who I really was. Is that what happened for you?
Yeah. I just constantly maybe had some sensation of pushing when things might have come up. I just kind of pushed them back down, like, oh, don't do that.
Oh,
You're going to be thought of as weird, or nobody wants to see that. No, don't. No, you just want to be vanilla. You got to just smoothly fit in. Whatever group you're in, you just fit in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally resonate with that.
Yeah.
And and what I found ironic in that whole process for me was that there were people in my life, and maybe this happened for you too. There were people in my life that I could look at who seemed to be stepping into authenticity. And somehow in my mind, I said, "Oh, I can't do that. That's not allowed. Why is But and yet I admired this person secretly for showing up, in what seemed like an authentic way. Did you have that sort of thing happen too?
Yeah, I really, I really looked up to people that didn't change their persona in different circumstances. They were who they were. Gee, why aren't they acting this way? They appear so calm and at ease. They're not wanting to gossip or get upset or do all that. They're just there. They don't ever. Their personality is congruent, cohesive. And I was like, wow, what's that all about? Aren't you supposed to act and do in different ways and things? So I remember being very like, wow, I really admire that. I admire that.
Right. Yeah.
I definitely had that sensing that, they've got something that I'm interested in, and that might be a good way for me to have her be. But I wasn't there yet, though. I was like,
Yeah, interesting. And yet, I'll bet in some cases, I mean, for me anyway, I would see people like this all my life, right up until the time that I really had my massive anger explosion that really caused me to realize something had to change. But even in my early life, I would see, people, children, adults, all kinds of people who seemed to be showing up authentically. And I had this story that I wasn't allowed to do that, that there was something about, I had learned the lesson so well that I have to fit into this hole, the square peg in the round hole kind of thing. That's what it was going on for me. Yeah, it's interesting how that whole thing happened. And you mentioned that it was in your late 30s that the transition started to happen. Same time frame for me too. So definitely some commonalities here.
It's really fascinating. I guess when the universe tells us we're ready, that's when it is. I didn't know about what I'm sharing with you. I didn't really know. Here's what's interesting. I didn't know I had permission to have those thoughts that I didn't. I was frustrated and angry, and something was off. I didn't know what to do with that. And when life began to hit harder, then you're like, okay, I guess I really need to take a good look at this. Something this isn't going to stop. But yeah, that I guess it was meant to be for me at that time.
Well, it's interesting. So this has brought you then to, obviously you've done some of your own growth on this and some of your own work, your inner work, to reclaim the truth of who you really are. And that's really what we're both trying to teach other people here at this point, is the only thing that really matters above all else is knowing who you really are. If you know that, then everything else comes from that. Everything else emanates from that. And knowing who you really are and then expressing and experiencing who you really are is effectively what I call being authentic. I don't know if that's how you describe it, but that's how I describe it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when you, I'll add to that, when you begin to give yourself permission to know what you value matters, what is your foundation or belief system, when you give yourself permission to really go deep and explore things that matter to you on a very personal level, aside from society's rules and roles, then you feel comfortable with that, and from there you have your foundational core, and then you're able to start to grow that, to spring up, and all of who you are shows up from having done that deep work from your core. So it's definitely a process and a journey. Maybe some it comes quicker to them, and easier. If you've never done any exploring, like you said, you've been a surface person, that's going to take some work, but we all have that beautiful, fertile soil that's ours from birth to live anew, to go by all, layer upon layer to find out who we are, and then taking that deep comfort and showing up every day, no matter what, living from that place.
Right. And there are a lot of layers.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you, but every time I peeled back one layer, I'd find a whole slew more layers of stuff that I had, kind of piled on over the years and that I had to unpile, if you like. Pretty interesting, as you say, that the process of discovering or uncovering, perhaps is more accurate, who you really are. Because I think what we tend to do in our efforts to please the world is we cover ourselves up. We cover the true selves up because we think we're not allowed to show that. We believe we have the story in our head that there's bad parts in there that aren't supposed to be seen, that we're supposed to hide those. We're supposed to disown them. We're supposed to disavow them. And yet, just because we think in our heads that we have hidden them or disowned them or disavowed them, they haven't gone away. They're just sitting there in the darkness, in the shadows. That's all they're doing. And they're still there. Those parts of ourselves never go away.
That is so true. Yeah. They're very fascinating. I think that's why maybe, sadly, there's maybe a lot more anxiety, depression, and disconnection because we become untethered from our true self based on social media more than ever, based on thinking we need to measure up, we need to keep up, measure up, go with the flow. And I know more and more, and this is really a big deal, I think more and more young adults are really living with more anxiousness and depression because they think who they need to be is based on who they follow or likes and shares, and they're not giving themselves maybe as much permission to just be them. Maybe not unlike my journey. I didn't have social media back then, but I think when you deny the core of who you are because you don't think it's pretty or perfect or it's boring or you just don't know, you're not tethered to your life. And that was a healer's exact words to me when I did an energy healing years ago is, you're not tethered, your feet are not on the ground. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so she did a process with me, and I literally felt the floor and my feet bump and touch. It was physical. I mean, it was spiritual, but it was physical. And yeah, I think it's important for all of us to really know who we are and be really lovingly comfortable with that, because at the essence, we have our own self to enjoy and to give the world. And if we don't know who we are, or we're uncomfortable with the parts that we deem good or bad or weird or awesome, then we're constantly blowing through life or just coming up and off the ground. So knowing who I am at my core, finding my place of authenticity has been transformational, to say the least, for me in my journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I think I just want to come back and touch on something here. First of all, what I have come to learn and come to believe is there is really nothing bad about me. Nothing bad at all. There may be certain behaviors I've engaged in that have created results that weren't the ideal results, weren't necessarily the results that I wanted, may have been damaging in some way, but that doesn't make me a bad person. And it doesn't make anybody a bad person just because they happen to engage in a behavior or in a choice that creates, let's say, undesirable outcomes. What it means is that there's an aspect of me that needs to somehow express itself in a way that might outwardly to other people make them uncomfortable or may appear bad or wrong to them. But that's just their judgment. That's all it is. It's just a preference. I like this or I don't like that. That's ultimately what every judgment boils down to. You know, I like this, I don't like that. I prefer this, I don't prefer that. So part of the process of becoming authentic is being willing to own all of those parts of yourself. And not necessarily sharing them in every circumstance, but being aware that they're part of you and they're okay. They're okay. You know, I know for me, whenever I dig into a shadow, I usually discover that it's some aspect that I tried to push away when I was young. You know, as I get older and older, I'm not pushing anything away anymore. But back then, when I was a kid, I would push it away. Why? Well, because mommy got mad when I did such and such. You know, even my exuberance was considered bad in my house. You know, if you're going to be like that, take it outside. You know, I was told the message was it's not okay here. You see? And so I was trying to moderate and control my behavior in order to please my mom or my dad or whoever. And I think we all do that. You know, mom gets mad about something and we think it's about us. We think it's because we're broken, that we're bad people. Whereas we didn't do anything bad. We just did what we did. It was just perfectly spontaneous in the moment. So, you know, what I like to encourage people to do is embrace all those parts of yourself. Every shadow or every item, everything that we try to hide and put back into shadow contains a nugget of gold in it. It contains a real gift. And so it's important for us to embrace all those parts so we can bring the gift forward and maybe in a less dysfunctional way.
Yeah, hearing that, that is definitely a big deal, to be completely comfortable with the parts of you that are, quote, your talents, your gifts, your calling, as well as the parts that are works in progress, areas that you may not yet be adept at, or areas that you're learning, or quote your weak spots. But begin to know that you are doing exactly as you're meant to in the time that you're meant to. Like you said, the choices that you do gain certain results or behaviors. Being very vulnerable is another one. Being okay to say, hey, you know what? I'm not really that good at this skill, but I'm learning it, rather than trying to, like what I did. Well, I had perfect syndrome. Well, I have to be really good at everything and have to look a certain way. And I can't let anybody know that I'm not good at that, or I don't quite know, don't have the skills to do that. I think being able to be vulnerable and transparent with your supposed strengths and weaknesses, your own unique idiosyncrasies. That's when you sit comfortably in your own little boat, I call it, with your oars rowing through the lake of life, not needing to have life vests thrown at you because, oh, I've fallen, I can't get up, or I'm drowning, I'm sinking. That was a big deal for me to accept and admit and to share. Yeah, you know what? I'm technologically challenged. You're right. I'm not adept at doing math equations, or I'm not super organized, but I'm really comfortable with these areas. And people were like, "Oh, wow, okay, thank you for sharing that, for letting us inviting us into your life."
Right.
That was, a key part of authenticity for me.
Right, absolutely. You know, being willing to own every aspect of yourself. That's really what I think authenticity is. And not just own it, but not being afraid to show it.
Yeah.
You know, being willing to let it be seen, all of it, warts and all. And I think that's what we tend to, I certainly admire people who are willing to allow all of themselves to be seen. I really connect with people like that. If I detect even the slightest bit of pretense or covering up, trying to show up a certain way, then I tend to kind of back away from people like that. I find that, okay, you're not being real with me, and I can be friendly and cordial with you, but I'm certainly not going to engage with you on a deeper, more vulnerable level until I see who you really are. So it's a vital point. I mean, if we want to have successful relationships, even with people we're not necessarily in primary relationship with, then we have to be willing to be honest about who we really are.
Yes, and that can be, like you said, for me, I had to learn because I was so used to living at the surface. I had to learn how to accept and share my deeper areas that was at the, hidden. And when I was able to learn how to vulnerably share intimate parts of my life with my husband, in fact, we had a surface relationship as well. And when he and I were able to comfortably share from deep from our heart, that, even though it was uncomfortable, there was some conflict there. That's when we really began to live more deeply. And that's a key component of authenticity. Is it's a process of self-discovery. It's not a one and done. There's not a roadmap, but there's a process of becoming aware and moving through self-discovery and giving yourself permission. It is okay. The shoe's not going to drop. I'm not going to be stoned or yelled at or get fired. It's okay for me to share what's going on in my heart and in my life, in a way that's respectful and opens doors for other to know me and for them to feel comfortable. So when we are able to share deeply from our life, how much more gifting are we giving to others to come into our fold and share with us? So as we share and give authentically, we're giving that gift to the world. I didn't realize that before, but it's so true. Yeah.
I agree with that totally. And what's interesting, I first of all, I think that it's okay to share anything about yourself. Even if somebody else who happens to be listening says loud and clear, that's not okay. Because what that other person is really doing is expressing his or her own judgment / preference.
Yeah.
Is really saying, I don't want to hear that. And, whenever somebody tries to shut me down now, using words like that or energy of that type, I usually just look at them and I say, so what I'm hearing is this subject is making you uncomfortable.
Ooh. That's very respectful because you're not shutting them down with, be quiet or knock it off. You're letting them know that you care about them, and I can tell something is coming up for you in this conversation. You're feeling, you're having a reaction. You're being triggered.
Exactly. I try not to use words. The word trigger is itself a trigger.
Yeah, that's true.
I find most people, if I say to them, "Oh, I see you're getting triggered," they automatically go into defensive mode,
Yeah.
But if I say, so it sounds to me what I'm hearing is you're uncomfortable with what I just said. You want to share a little bit about that? I mean, it's an invitational way of acknowledging somebody else's discomfort, because that's really what their judgment is.
That's very true. You're right. Judgment is another person's discomfort or whatever they're dealing with that's being projected out.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this happens for positive judgments too, by the way. Oh, you're such an amazing person. And I just say, oh, thank you so much for seeing me. I really appreciate being seen. That's what I say. Rather than trying to deflect it and saying, oh, well, I'm not so amazing. I'm just an ordinary person. I just say, thank you so much for seeing me. It just simplifies things so much. And it's a blessing when someone gives you that kind of judgment. So why not just accept it as a gift?
I like that.
Yep.
That's nice.
So, yeah. So now you were talking a little bit about your relationship with your husband, and some of the process that you went through. And the way I would characterize that discussion is essentially what you were learning to do was to remove your own masks and shields, to let more of your heart be shown and less of the protectiveness. Is that accurate?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, definitely. We were, yeah, learning how to have a conversation that was authentic. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I think these deeper, authentic conversations that we may have with significant others or good friends, I mean, they're not going to be completely comfortable and you're on a floating on a white cloud. I mean, sometimes the most authentic conversations involve um, just some pain or struggle in
Hmm.
order to get to that nugget that's real. And that's kind of been our journey of coming from the surface, going down into the core of who we are as individuals and in our relationship. And in that place, a deeper understanding, a deeper empathy and compassion for each other. I think that's why there's a lot of higher rate of breakups and divorces, because people are living at the surface, posturing themselves based on what they assume the other should be thinking or doing or presuming about them. And they aren't, it's difficult to have those deep conversations because they take time and they kind of suck.
Yeah.
You know, they're not pretty. But what in the aftermath of that conversation, you walk together with a deeper connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that doesn't have to be with necessarily with marriage or in a relationship. It can be with deep friendships as well.
Sure. Hmm.
Yeah. So that's been part of my journey as well, is unmasking stuff at the surface and getting to the core. And like I said, it's not easy, but
Hmm.
it's such a beautiful release and gift for for ourselves in the world as well.
Right. I totally agree with you. I'd like to just address this whole concept of easy versus hard.
Hmm.
Again, those are just judgment words. What
Hmm.
I have noticed for myself is when I first started doing this, when I first got into relationship where this kind of vulnerability was expected, and it was difficult for me at first because I was so used to the other way of being, of protecting myself, of covering up, of showing all the best sides of me and so forth.
Hmm. Hmm.
But as I learned that it was safe to reveal the stuff that was inside, it actually became easier. And it reached a point where I understood soon enough that I can do this with anybody now. I don't really care who they are. Whether I have a very, very close relationship or whether I've just met them for the very first time, I still can be truly open, authentic, and vulnerable if I choose to. Because 99.999% of the time, people are not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
You know, some people, maybe they have a vindictive
Hmm.
makeup and maybe they have their own pain that I don't know about. And yeah, they might be triggered by something that I say in my vulnerability that
Hmm.
leads them to lash out. Well, okay, I might get hurt, but it's pretty rare. Most people don't take advantage, I've found, when I'm vulnerable. When they try to come after me, when they attack me, is when I'm being defensive. That's
Hmm.
when the attack happens. So we tend to be fighting each other, you know? Whereas if I'm just open and receptive, there's no point, there's no need to attack. The reason for attack just simply goes away because my ego is now out of play and now my heart is in action. So that's what I've noticed for myself. Does that work for you too?
Yeah, that's really just processing what you said. That is, I think, yeah, because if you're sharing from your heart space, your true self, you're not doing it divisively, uh, meanly, manipulatively. You're just sharing who you are. And yeah, people have the choice to come alongside you or do whatever they're going to do. We're not responsible really for that. I mean, if we're sharing something deep from who we are and just showing up, like for instance, I teach a lot of fitness classes, and I now just teach, I show up and share things from who I am. And we have so much fun. I'm not showing up thinking, oh, I need to be this professional, polished teacher and say this way and act this way. I just let things bubble up and everybody has a great time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. Then, like you said, it goes back to the foundation, sitting comfortably in the foundation of all of yourself. That comes up, and I think people are looking for authenticity today. And I know I did way back when I didn't know about it. I was certainly attracted to people that were, quote, comfortable with themselves and their own skin. And I guess that was, yeah, they were being authentic. People really appreciate that. You're right, they may not have that word for it, but we just innately recognize a person who is true and good. Yeah.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about aspects of authenticity without actually creating any kind of a definition.
Yeah.
Like, so when you say authentic, what do you actually mean? Do you mean, I think I know what you mean, but I'd like to hear you say it in your own words.
Good point. Authenticity or living authentic to me means just showing up, having done some work of being aware, of discovering all parts of myself and bringing them up to the surface, not dumping them down or shoving them down, and just being openly abundant to my true self. What are my talents and gifts? What are my, quote, struggles, without needing to hold back, thinking that I need to act this way at this professional group, act this way to my close friends group, act this way to whatever. Just being who I am in all situations, doing so respectfully and lovingly, and being unafraid to go into the deep core of me. So living vulnerably, living transparently, not needing to hold back. Of course, I'm not going to say things that are, again, I guess, that are, I feel are mean or going to just cut somebody off, but not holding back from the core of who I am. I like to do a lot of encouraging and live abundantly and joyfully, and allowing that to come up, not thinking that, oh, I need to act really serious and quiet in this situation, but finding an appropriate way to always bring my true self in. So yeah, I would definitely say being authentic is showing up who you truly are at your core, and being vulnerable and transparent in all situations, not having different components and compartments to be and act a certain way for one group or another, or in this situation. But even when you're home and by yourself, you're going to be the same as if you are speaking in front of a large group. That to me is what it means to live authentically.
I think there's one more word I would add in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's an adverb, I guess, to live authentically and without apology.
Yeah.
You don't have to apologize for who you are. You don't have to apologize to anyone for who you are, ever. You may need to apologize for certain actions or behaviors, and we all have to go through that from time to time. But if you show up authentically and someone else is uncomfortable with it, as I said, you can just say, I noticed that you're feeling some discomfort with what I just shared. You don't need to apologize for it because you've done nothing wrong. You've simply shown up as who you really are. So I think that's an important aspect of this.
Yeah. I like that. That's a beautiful way, being unapologetic because you're you, right?
Mm-hmm.
On you, and that's you, that's me,
Yeah.
not you. And I think as women, especially, we're very a lot of us are geared to always say I'm sorry or apologizing. and I did a lot of that. I'm like, what am I sorry for? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and yet, and if you think about this for a minute, if you just, I watch a lot of Netflix because I like some movies. I like watching movies. But
Mhm.
what I found is a common statement that I hear in movies when two people are in relationship is one person will say to the other, "I'm so so sorry." What? For what? You see, we do this all the time.
Mhm.
And it just I see it seems like almost every movie I watch, there's going to be one or two scenes like that in the movie, and I'm trying to understand what are they trying to say here? What is the big picture message? That we have to be apologetic for how we're showing up, that we have to uh, show sorrow. We can't just say I'm sorry. We have to say I'm so 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 sorry. We have to put those so's in there. I just don't understand. And
That is, yeah,
you know,
that's interesting.
this happens. I see a lot of stuff like that in movies and stuff and behaviors, and I'm thinking, wow, is that really authentic behavior that I'm seeing? And maybe the reason I watch these movies is to help me cement my own understanding of what it truly means to be authentic and what it means to uh, honor the fact that I do have shadow parts of myself, which are a part of me, you know?
Mhm.
Anyway, I thank you for sharing that. But the other thing I was going to say about this was not only should you be unapologetic, but I think also one should never compromise who you are. It's okay to compromise in terms of finding a solution that is going to be satisfactory to multiple parties, but don't ever compromise who you are. That's really important.
That's a big deal. That was a learning journey for me, because I was always, again, being that people pleaser, wanting to be all things to all people. I compromised. I didn't live who I was meant to be. I mean, not, I didn't like go every moment of every day, but yeah, a compromise is a big deal with being apologizing. Those two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They're a form of they're a form that we of a word that people don't like to hear because it sounds yucky. It's self-deprecation. So
Hmm.
those two words, and it's so funny, we wouldn't do that to other people supposedly, but we do it to ourselves in these ways that, apologizing or holding back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another fascinating. There's so many components to living authentically because it deals with the heart and soul of who we are at our essence. And yeah, society has also placed some constraints, like you said, with social media. Oh, look at how everybody's so happy and smiling. They're all doing this and that. And oh, then you start to question, well, gee, I have these dark areas or these dark thoughts. I must be crap.
Right.
I'm going to hide that. Nobody's going to
Yeah.
know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this whole idea of social media and the impact that it has on us and how it makes us show up, or well, it doesn't make us do anything. To be honest, we make the choice individually to adopt a certain way of being based on what we see outside. There's nothing out there that can make me do anything.
Yeah.
It's like the mistake I hear us make all the time. Well, you made me feel whatever. No, I didn't. I just did what I did, and you felt what you felt. You
Yeah.
know, and what you felt was based on some thoughts that you had in your head and some sensations you had in your body. It had nothing to do with what I did.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Oh,
we
that's,
don't take responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings and emotions. So
yep. That's the core of also learning how to live authentically is taking responsibility rather than telling people to, oh, nope, that's your responsibility for my feeling rather than taking ownership.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I talk a lot about communication styles and how to share with somebody. If I have an issue with you, let's say, uh, and my thought in my head says, "Oh, you made me feel bad because of X, Y, and Z." Well, okay, that's the thought that I'm having in my head. So what's really going on for me? If I can process this a little bit, I can say, I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling angry because I have this story in my head that you don't love me anymore because I did such and such. Now it's all about me. It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. You see? So I'm taking full ownership in that way, but I still can be honest to how I'm feeling. And I can even tell you a little bit about the judgment that I had about you, right? As long as I own it. I can't just come out and blurt, you're a blank, fill in the blank. What I can do instead is I notice I'm having this judgment about you because of what happened, and I'm feeling anger about it. Wow, what a difference that is. So much easier for you to hear than if I just blurt out, you're such a whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's being so comfortable with yourself that you're able to share by responding rather than reacting.
Yeah.
You made me mad. I feel I feel bad, whatever. I feel I'm nothing because of what you said. It's like,
yeah.
No, that's the difference between reacting and responding, and who are you at the core?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you had a process for becoming more authentic. You had a multi-step process. Do you want to share a little bit about that today?
I will do so. I took down some little notes here to remind me to dive in. So as we've been talking today, learning to live authentically and know who we are at the core it's a process. As we are human, we're always flowing and growing and changing. Our lives are dynamic, not static. So as we do everything else, learning who we are at the core is a lifestyle process. It's a journey. It's not a one and done. So mine took quite some time. The very first step of learning how to find your authenticity is the process of step one, becoming aware. Like I said, my first step of finding and owning who I was, I had to pay attention to those little sensations of emotion and feeling that came up. Why am I feeling so angry all the time? Why am I frustrated? So self-awareness, number one, would be that very, very first step into moving forward. And then once you're self-aware, the next step is for self-discovery. So instead of just saying, I'm angry and frustrated. Okay, well, I want to discover, why am I angry and frustrated about a situation or an event or a thought? So you have to be comfortable, even though you may not know what's going on, to go underneath the surface and begin to ask some self-related questions. What is this? What is this? So self-discovery. Also with the self-discovery, once you've, quote, discovered that, it's time for some deeper introspection. What about that self-discovery is making me feel this way? Spending a lot of time. I spent a lot of time in introspection, because if you try to go too quickly with this one, then you're going to miss some key parts. So the introspection part, again, it's not a one and done. It may take years, or a year or two at least. Mine is ongoing. Each time I have deep conversations or take some trainings, I'm learning, I'm connecting more. So deep introspection, going beneath the surface, is one of that process. The process of learning to be mindful, very key. Mindfulness ties into that very first step, being self-aware. So when you are becoming aware of thoughts and feelings and emotions and your response or reaction, that is you being mindful. So developing the lifestyle skill of mindfulness, being present and aware, ties deeply into the process of living authentically and becoming authentic. So if you're living at the surface, taking things at face value, you're going to have more of a challenge getting there. So learning to bring in the beauty of being mindful is a key component to becoming authentic. Those two basically hold hands. Finally, another big component for all of this is self-love or self-compassion. Many people who live at the surface, such as I did, have been conditioned or trained that I don't love myself. I don't value myself. I'm told to love others and to have care, but really, we've got to learn first to give ourselves the oxygen. We have to learn to love ourselves, all of ourselves, quote those idiosyncrasies, bumps, warts, flaws, with all of the good stuff. Self-love ties in with mindfulness, ties in with deeper introspection, ties in with self-discovery, ties in with self-awareness. They all hold hands with each other. And again, it's a process of moving, growing, pausing, reflecting, stagnating, and moving again. But it's a beautiful journey. And that's kind of the way that became my way for who I am and how I live today.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful. So if I could just recap
yeah.
those 5 steps, I just put them into the chat here. But the first was self-awareness,
Yeah.
self-discovery,
Uh-huh.
deeper introspection,
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
and then self-love or self-compassion.
Yes.
Beautiful. Those are awesome things for all of us to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I also understand that you have a new book that
Mm-hmm.
you were telling me about this at the beginning of or before we started, and I don't have a copy of this one, so I'm not able to show it. So why don't you just tell people a little bit about that book and how they can get a hold of it?
I will.
Show us the cover. Show us the cover. Yeah, there it is. The
Yep.
Beauty of Authenticity.
Yes. So this is an anthology book. I was invited to be one of 22 authors in this book. In this book, we each shared our own personal story of how we uncovered, discovered, processed who we were at the core. So they're very personal stories. Mine is in here. And I totally forgot to share this with David. Our topic was authenticity. I'm like, okay, hello. I'm an author in the book, The Beauty of Authenticity. So this book, if you're interested, is available on my website, nancystevenscoaching.com. I believe it's $10. You would get an autographed copy from me. Again, it's a beautiful book with myself and several authors sharing our own personal stories of how we came to find and own who we are at the core. Thank you for allowing me to share that, David.
Oh, no, you're totally welcome, and thank you for sharing it. So
Yeah.
that book is, I'm sorry, The Beauty of Authenticity is the title, is that right?
Yes, The Beauty of
Okay.
Authenticity. It is on Amazon, but how we've done this as individual authors is I have mine for sale on my website.
Great. And so that's nancystevenscoaching.com,
Yeah.
and that's Stevens, Stevens.
Yep,
And
exactly.
everything else is as you would normally spell it.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems that we have just about run out of time. This has been a great discussion, a fabulous conversation. I thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
I think for all of us, myself included, when we take on the feelings and sensations that are coming at us in workplace, home place, life, and do some deep work with those, we are going to really land in who we are meant to be, especially if we're one that is a people pleaser, an obliger, wanting to show up, quote, with perfect syndrome. When we make a beautiful choice that we want more for our lives and more for others, and begin to do that deeper work of self-discovery, self-love, mindfulness, you're going to find that you're going to have a really rich, abundant life, an everyday, ordinary life, but one that's really rich. You're going to have less frustration, anger, disconnection, maybe anxiety or whatnot. When you learn to live authentically, a lot of that's going to go away. You're not going to dismantle the things that happen unexpectedly or in life, but you are so rooted in who you are that you're not going to get thrown off course. You're going to be who you are no matter what life gives you, and then you're going to give that gift to the world and to others. So taking care of you gives you the gift to really show up for the world. And it has just been an incredible, beautiful journey for me to gather this in and to share it with you guys here with David on Life Mastery TV.
Well, thank you so much for that, Nancy. And by the way, I would just add that sharing yourself with the world is what you're here to do anyway. So why not do it in the biggest, most beautiful, most vulnerable, most authentic way you can? Seems
Mm,
to me that is really the ultimate goal here.
that is exactly. Yeah. So showing up less than, again, that apology or less than, there's so much more just to
Right.
embrace life and just to be. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have to say I really love where I'm at with my life today, and I'm so thankful that I didn't dismiss or deny or shove down those feelings that came up, that I was able, even though I had no clue what to do or how to get there, that I was able to move forward to be here sharing with you today.
That's
Yeah.
fabulous. Well, thank you again, Nancy, for being here. I appreciate your time, your energy, and just the way you share your love with the world. Just
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
My pleasure as well. And I love your work, David. You do great work. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today and watching this program. Remember, you can watch recordings of this and all other episodes at my website on lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. And please remember the Life Mastery mantra and practice it every single day. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Until we meet again, I am David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you again in the next round. Bye-bye.